Half of this vehicle is unsprung weight.
Whoa! Hi folks, we're at LR Workshop. I'm hitching a ride with Jamie in his 6-wheel drive Volvo.
Yeah! So this is a Volvo what?
This is a Volvo C304. Oh, look at the state of it. You can't take videos in here. It's honest, God, it's not usually this bad,
No.
but it just is.
He's a mechanical engineer who cut his teeth in the forestry, farming, mining and road building industries before moving on to managing vehicle fleets for the UN and other organisations in places like Afghanistan and Africa.
How many miles to the gallon?
We don't talk about miles to the gallon in the polite company. I didn't realise you were filming there, actually. So the ticking noise you're hearing is a Facet fuel pump.
Yeah.
It's a petrol engine. None of that nasty diesel stuff.
Yeah.
He started off with Land Rovers, as many of us do, and has since developed a penchant for more exotic off-road vehicles. He's also been building his own off-road buggies, as he calls them, for the last 30 years. We're off to see the crowning achievement of his pastime, a Stage 1 V8 Series Land Rover that has morphed into some kind of Forest Rover off-road prototype. During my visit, he explained things to me about designing off-road vehicles that I've never even considered before. It was a fascinating experience. I couldn't help but play devil's advocate with him.
This Volvo's going to be electric one day. Absolutely is.
This one or the other one, the red one?
This one. No, the other one will have a Chevy LS in it. You need to cover the bases. So a Chevy LS, a Cummins 12 valve, and something with a Tesla motor are, I think, the enthusiast engines of the future. Long may the autopilot not work properly. And it leaves mere mortals like themselves to harvest them.
What's the longest journey you've done in this?
Around Ireland.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny feeling the suspension where the cab's forward of the front axle or over it.
Aye.
You can feel it's that kind of just the delay between the bump, or you see the bump and then it happens afterwards. It's kind of weird. That's nice.
Oh, the scenic route.
Yeah. Oop. See it.
There it is in all its glory. It really needs a name, doesn't it?
Well, the Forest Rover's pretty good.
It isn't a Forest Rover, it's just a bloody... What would you call one? You know, the extra scenic route.
I didn't think you were going to drive off there. But, that's a satisfying lever, that. You call it a Forest Rover?
Well, I haven't called it anything. It was the Cummins buggy.
The Pink Panther?
No.
Oh, sorry, Tigger.
That's Tigger.
Tigger, not Pink Panther.
Yeah, aye, that's Tigger on the side. And came in for work one day to the car park and Tigger was stuck in the side of it. And it's been there ever since, and to this day I still don't know who the hell put it on.
These tyres are pretty epic. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be, actually. They're huge.
Well, they're Alliance Agri-Star 2s.
They're the front wheels of a tractor.
Aye, they're Valmet front wheels. But all the forestry lads here, they're all binning their 24s, putting 28s on just to get that extra wee bit of clearance in the stumps.
Okay.
So, for me it means I get a nice source of...
Cheap wheels.
Aye.
Look at that chassis. So this is a Land Rover chassis, right? Or it's not? It's just...
It is right, it's not a Land Rover chassis. What it is a bit of the old radar station that I helped chop up after it blew away in a storm.
Okay.
Looks
like a Land Rover, though.
It looks like a Land Rover, and the chassis is absolutely modelled after a Land Rover chassis.
So was this a Land Rover turned into this, or was it a radar station turned into a forest machine?
That's a fair question. I would suggest it was the what part holds the spirit of a Land Rover? Because I hope it's not the engine, the gearbox, the chassis, the axles. Could it be the steering wheel maybe?
So these are bits from a Land Rover. So you had a Land Rover.
Yes, I had a fully functional Land Rover
Rover.
that I wasted building this.
So you had a Land Rover, and now you don't have a Land Rover, but you have this instead.
Yes.
Therefore, it probably was a Land Rover.
Yeah, but see, the moral of the story is if you're thinking of turning your Land Rover into an off-roader, just don't.
But a Land Rover is an off-roader,
It's
isn't it?
absolutely not. No. 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 Land Rovers are not off-roaders.
Okay, so tell me why this is an off-roader and a Land Rover and a stand like this wasn't an off-roader beforehand. I mean, for starts, there's no springs on it. How can it be an off-roader if there's no springs on it?
Why does it need springs to be an off-roader?
To bounce around, to soak up the undulations
No,
of
if
the
you just
ground.
man up a bit, you're grand. No, springs have just not quite made their way onto it yet.
Okay.
It's going to get hydraulic cylinders filled with nitrogen or air. I haven't really decided
In
yet.
around here somewhere.
Aye, these mocked up are actually going to be where the stays for the rear roll. So it's going to have a roll bar hoop, and these will be the rear stays.
Yeah. What were these axles off?
So they're Simca Sum Marmon axles, designed in the early 50s. They're not the best axle in the world, I'll say that now, but they'll bolt straight onto a standard Land Rover with zero modifications
Really?
almost.
So
See-
wider wheel track because of the.
It does have a wider wheel track, but it's not ridiculous. So that's a fabrication I've made that. The axle's just a normal tube,
Yeah.
and that's part of the rear recovery that's to be integrated. Basically, it's getting built as a recovery vehicle. Very much a work in progress. There's not a single thing finalised on the chassis, which is why some of it is literally tack welded together.
Yeah.
There's a lot going to either get chopped out or put back in. You know, do I really need a rear PTO?
I'd say worry about the springs first.
The springs need
Get the
to
springs on it and then
Well,
worry
the
about the PTO.
Aye, well the springs need to get in line, because the very first thing that needs to happen is get a hook behind the cab.
So what was the phrase you used? Would you use that as an axle stand?
Aye.
Would
Yeah,
you
wouldn't
use
hesitate.
your roll cage as an axle stand? 'Cause
Yes.
that's effectively what it is,
Yeah,
basically.
uh-huh,
So what does
yeah.
this? What do you think this thing weighs?
Just now it's 2.1 tonnes.
2.1 tons, just like this.
As it is just now, with no coolant, no
Because the
hydraulics.
cooler makes a difference.
By the time I've got the radiator, well that's without even the radiator, but by the time
Yeah.
I've got a radiator, a coolant system in, they're still 100 kilos by the time you've plumbed it in.
Yeah.
Why is it so heavy? Well, look at the fins in the radiator. You need to be able to hose your mud-caked radiator out.
Yeah.
So if you get a nice, finely made aluminium radiator from Alisport, it's lovely on a rainy day in the UK, but it's absolutely no use when it's full of mud, because you can't clean it. And it's no use when it's had a single spray of mud, because the fins are completely blocked. The actual cooling capacity in terms of BTUs of that radiator would be matched by something you could buy for a 1.9 Golf, but I could throw probably 2 kilos of mud at that and still have a fair amount of cooling capacity in reserve. The engine does need cooling.
Yeah.
If you're making
So what's the engine?
horsepower-
Come on, let's see the engine. Let's see the engine.
Well,
Where is the engine? Is it there or is it here?
if I knew you were coming, I would have took all the shite out of it.
Like all the Land Rovers, you mean?
Yeah. What's the best
Come on then, so what is
way
it?
of seeing the engine? Can you see it from round here?
More or less.
Come round here, and what to do is ask me what's the engine again, and I shall direct you into that.
Okay, what's the engine again? Tell me what the engine is.
Well, shine your camera in there, and anybody that knows anything about engines knows exactly what that is. It's a 12 valve Cummins with a P pump.
12 comes with people. 6-cylinder.
6-cylinder.
Straight 6, diesel.
Yes.
Look at it. Is that the... What the...
That's the power steering.
Jeez, man. That's like... If a Land Rover was British size, that would be American size. Does this come from America?
No. That engine is built in Darlington by a bunch of Brits, probably drinking tea at the time.
Really?
Yes.
How many, what are the statistics on it? What are its main numbers?
Its main numbers are, I'm allowed to swear, it's heavy as f***. You can bleep that out.
Yeah.
It's slow as f***.
Yeah.
It's noisy.
Yeah.
And it has NVH that is off the charts.
Imagine.
The numbers that you meant. The way it's set up right now would pull probably 3 Clydesdales at a push.
3 horsepower.
3 horsepower is my estimate. If I put 3 strapping Clydesdales on the back, it would be a run for its money.
Is this the intake?
That's the exhaust.
So exhaust into the cab.
Well, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's a.
I love the smell of diesel in the morning.
It's barely road legal, but you know.
I mean, it hasn't got a floor
And then
yet.
the fire extinguisher is actually a fire extinguisher.
That's the fuel tank.
That's the fuel tank.
Currently.
And there's the flux capacitor here.
Yeah, that was borrowed off another buggy kind of project that kind of ended up here. And then...
And this radiator, is that the intercooler?
That's pretending. That's not a radiator, that's identifying as a heater matrix.
Okay, for warming the cab up.
Yeah, it's just, it has to identify as that to sort of complete the cooling circuit.
I got it, yeah. And this bulkhead, these repair panels, are these YRM?
No, they probably predate YRM by some decades.
It's not a bad idea though. I mean, we've got checker plate everywhere else on Land Rovers. Why not have it in the bulkhead? I mean,
Well, who else has got checker plate vent panels though?
true, do they open?
Not yet, but
Not
they
quite.
will. They're made so that one day they shall open. The switches is probably something that's more interesting.
These ones.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Those switches are my brakes.
Run hydraulically.
Yeah. Come round here.
How much do you reckon that's worth? Just that bit on its own?
22 pence.
22 pence?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Right, you've not to die. If the bonnet falls down on you, you've not to die, okay?
Okay, I'll get my camera away from it. Yeah. So that's master cylinder.
Hasn't got a master cylinder as such, no. That's literally something to take the brake pedal to the modulator.
This is the brake pedal.
Yeah.
So that's just redundant.
No.
Oh.
That's my clutch. Well, we try that again. You're a Land Rover man, you're supposed to know these things.
Yeah, well, this is the clutch normally. Well, you switch the sides, obviously, but...
I'm teasing you. So, I've used a master cylinder for the clutch
Yeah.
because my old man's a bit infirm and's had a couple of new knees in him and
Yeah.
he couldn't push the clutch pedal unless it was assisted.
Okay.
So I've got vacuum assist for the clutch, and then the brake is using a Range Rover P38 ABS modulator,
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
and the modulator is powered by the pump here. So we've got a pump, pressure switch and accumulator you're looking at there,
Oh, yeah.
all set to work at 170 bar.
So you're basically... These are basically wheel speed sensors
No, they're
for
just,
ABS.
they're just, they just function now as wheel brakes. So if I want to just stop as normal, I use the foot brake
Okay.
as a service brake as any other brake. But
Yeah.
if I'm turning right and I want to turn sharper, I'll click the back right brake and that'll lock this back wheel and it'll just turn a wee bit sharper.
So it's the opposite of ABS in that sense.
You could switch
It's
it on really quickly.
actual locking system.
Yes, it's a brake locking system.
Brake locking system, there we go, yeah.
The one and only gauge I have is my oil pressure.
And you judge speed off oil pressure.
That's off your... the snap-on cushion here is calibrated.
Yeah.
That as the feedback it gives you tells you how fast that you're going.
Oh, what batteries you going for? XV35. What brand are they?
Numax, I think.
Okay.
It is a Land Rover bulkhead outrigger in the place that Land Rover bulkhead outriggers would go. Unfortunately, I haven't quite got round to a floor yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't where the batteries are going. The batteries are actually going in the front corners.
Okay.
I've got an air tank to go on each side here.
Oh yeah.
So the hydraulic cylinders are both going to feed to an air tank along the side of the chassis. Oh, you need to look at the goofy steering before we start it. So it's not running hydro steer
Okay.
at all.
So does that mean it only steers when the engine's running? Or is that just mega play?
If it was moving, you can steer it. Like if you were getting towed, you could steer it.
Yeah.
But and also remember, it's sitting at full bump just now. There's 20 inches of wheel travel.
Mm.
So if it's full drooped at 20 inches, it's got zero bump steer anywhere in the travel.
Okay.
What's kind of goofy about the steering is it's link suspension
Yeah.
with crossover steering and zero bump steer. And this bevel box is what allows it to have all that suspension travel without any bump steer. The only way of steering an axle without bump steer is directly from the top. It's got 30 degrees each way of articulation.
Mm.
Any which way you try to put a steering shaft onto your axle or any kind of drag link, there's always a way it's trying to give you bump steer. Having something turning from the very top is the only way of entering steering into an axle mechanically. So that's what I've done with this.
Okay.
It's also contrived in such a way that the anti-dive on the front goes from like no anti-dive to lots of anti-dive through its suspension travel.
What does anti-dive mean?
If you can imagine pushing a wheelbarrow into a kerb, if you've got your handles down low, you've got a chance of getting up the kerb. But if you get your handles up high, you're going to hit the kerb.
Mm.
But so high handles is high anti-dive, right? When this is on,
And that would be the links or the radius arms
yeah,
in the
exactly.
junction.
So on a Defender, the radius arms are rigid. You jump on the brakes, the rotation of the axle is actually lifting the rear mounts of the radius arm, and it's actually lifting the front of the Defender up. So a Defender has got built-in anti-dive. If those arms are longer, the moment between the wheel contact patch or tyre contact patch and the radius arm, if you've got long arms, that moment's reduced, so you get less anti-dive, and if it's really short, you get more anti-dive. So there's 600 kilos just now between the wheel, tyre and axle assembly. There's 150 kilos in each wheel and tyre, and then 300 in the axles.
So 600 there, 600 there, 1200.
1200
Half of this vehicle is unsprung weight.
It is just now, yeah.
But Jamie, everybody knows that unsprung weight is the enemy.
It's just not, because all these people read race car books where they know nothing about off-roading.
Tell me why it's relevant to off-roading. Why do you want
Right.
unsprung weight in off-roading?
Because unsprung weight is... Right, I'm not going to say it's better. What I'm going to say is it makes less difference. It comes down to the frequency of response of the wheel, right? And also the tyre contact patch at low tyre pressures. Everybody who ever said that low unsprung weight is good was only ever running tyres at really high pressures on the racetrack. Nobody that ever said unsprung weight or talked about unsprung weight ever had their tyres at 4 psi. I've got more than a foot of suspension travel here before I even start looking at spring movement.
Yeah.
Now, if you consider the tyres as part of the suspension, the way vehicle designers and especially Land Rover designers, GLR designers don't, because they basically eliminated sidewalls of tyres now, the current generation of Defender.
Yeah.
But if you consider tyres as part of the suspension and you've got a very high unsprung weight, all of a sudden now the tyre can work as part of your suspension. There was a wee man in Scotland many years ago decided it was much better to have rubber with an air cushion inside it, Mr. Dunlop, and he went to all the trouble of invented tyres. We ended up with things like this, which are truly wonderful, And then we've had companies like JLR trying to uninvent the tyre and turn it back into a band that goes round about a cartwheel. So somewhere in the middle is probably the optimum in tyre development. It's certainly not where we are now. But
So the heavy unsprung weight allows you to
use the tyre as
use the tyre.
suspension. Yeah. At very, very low pressures.
Yeah. Does it run? That's what everyone wants to know.
I hope so. Pass me that bonnet down, please. I mean, it is totally ghetto just now. That's the thing. It's actually
Prototype.
it's an embarrassment, really.
Looks pretty. It's in the flesh. It's bigger than I was expecting. Because there was a Forest Rover from Land Rover, wasn't there? Was it a prototype or was it a production model?
Oh no,
or?
it was absolutely, they were production models. So I'm just turning the isolator switch on. Despite just how ghetto it is, it has actually got an isolator in it. You can adjust the wastegate with your knee.
Yeah.
You know.
That's handy.
Yeah. I've just got a spring on here that's carefully calibrated to about 30 psi. It'll start opening at 30 psi.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
How'd you get into it?
I don't even know. You just kind of get in.
It lets you in.
It lets you in. Can you identify the steering column? You'd want to be a pure anorak.
Looks like a Defender.
It is, but it's not. Well, no, it's not a Defender. Actually, you have to correct yourself.
9110.
Yes.
Okay. How many splines? 48?
Yes. Yeah. It should be. So it's not in the same location it would be in a Defender, which is why I'm kind of trapped just now.
Yeah.
I actually need to shorten it about 6 inches.
When was the last time you started it?
I don't know. Literally months. 4 months ago.
Alright, well, let's
So
do it.
before we started, we have to spin the turbo and see if it filled up with water yet. Alright, there's no water in the turbo, that's good. That's why I put the lid on it. Because the turbo
Just to keep the rain out.
Aye, the turbo was filling up with water.
Time circuit's on.
Yeah, so there's not actually much to it. Isolators are on. And this solenoid here is the actual start button. So
Cloud of smoke. Will it drive up there? I think it's the machine. Where's it going? Jeez, man. Never to be seen again. There he comes. That's cool. There's the radiator hanging out. Best off-road machine I've ever seen, and it's a Land Rover, naturally. That is impressive. That is very impressive.
The doors flying open's less than impressive though.
And the radiator hanging out around there.
Yeah, we'll need to try and edit that.
Yeah, it's ghetto, but it's cool. That's really interesting, I think.
Ride height's only going to be 4 or 6 inches at the most.
Higher than that.
Where it is just now.
Yeah.
So just now the lowest point, the belly plate, I think is 19 inches off the ground. And I don't want it too high. The last thing I want is to build it like a monster truck.
Yeah.
You know, you lose all sort of off-road prowess if it turned into a monster truck with a high centre of gravity.
I'm also liking the cab with the seat that's not even tied down.
Don't even know. Do you want to go? You can take it for a run. Just go round in a circle with it.
Yeah, I'll go around in a circle. Ready?
Yeah.
Maybe. Wow. It's needs a bit of what's the word? Yeah.
NVH work.
Fat mat, something like that. Some closed cell foam. Wow, that's cool. It's more stable than I thought it'd be. I thought it'd be rocking around all over the place. It's quite stable.
More springs.
Yeah.
The centre of mass of this,
somewhere around the axles.
Actually, below the roll centre.
So it's pretty stable.
It's very, very stable. There's not many vehicles like that. It wouldn't be a very good high-speed performer, but in terms of this crawling paper on severe side slopes, it's pretty stable. How easy to drive is it?
So easy to drive because
Isn't
you just point the vehicle and you don't even have to give it throttle. It just goes up.
Yes.
I guess that's and there's certain situations and like it's more akin to like when I drove a Discovery 4 on an experience day. And they were just point it at the hill and just press the throttle a bit harder, and it just goes up. It does all the things. It's a bit like that. That it just eats up whatever comes in front of it.
You can drive over any of those stumps you can see on the horizon.
Yeah.
You can drive literally over any of those stumps that would previously have thwarted your Discovery 4 experience, for example.
Yeah.
It's a recovery vehicle, really. It's not. This couldn't enter any competition in the UK.
Yeah.
Or if it did, it would just lose and be last in all of them.
I'm sure there's something it could win.
It's not really a competition, though.
Most extreme Land Rover Series vehicle that's not Land Rover Series.
Well, that's one. Whoa! Oh, I didn't tell you we were taking the scenic route, did I?
Little river crossing.
It's shallow.
Don't forget the bow wave.
Yeah, it's kind of deeper on this side. Yeah, it's really soft on that side. That was cool.
What a route to get here. Do you want people to leave comments on the video?
I can if I like, Chris. I don't know what they're going to say. Bloody
I think it's impressive.
40 48-year-old Volvo in a, what do you call it?
I know about the Forest Rover.
Cummins buggy thing.
Cummins buggy.
Cummins
Yeah, there we go.
Forest Rover thing. I mean, we can't call it a Forest Rover because, you know, it just isn't. But the Forest Rover is absolutely the inspiration behind it.
Yeah.
And in particular, the Lex Toll Forest Rover was the inspiration behind it.
Okay, I'm sure.
How long? That'll last in the toilet for ages, eh?
Yeah, we're running out of toilet roll at the moment. So it's as you say, about 130.
It is a 130, so 90-inch primary wheelbase with a 40-inch bogie spread.
Yeah.
So it literally is a 130, but with a turning circle of a 110 and a half.
And you got another one as well.
For spares. and
that one, yeah.
and the camper yellow one.
And the camper, oh yeah, and the one in there.
Aye, did you get that? You didn't get that in video, did you?
No, it's alright.
Yes.
This one's been my chariot to go and see the foresty, rovery, recovery vehicle.
Suggestions for a name on a postcard. Aye, leave suggestions for a name in the comments. What the hell is it?
It's basically a forestry recovery vehicle. A bog peat forestry recovery vehicle.
But it's also a
essentially-
toy.
And a toy.
There are many better things out there than that for recovering things. There's just a loose theme to kind of guide me on my path to creating something. So it's like, what's that movie, The Rebel Without a Cause? Only it's not very rebel-y and definitely doesn't have a cause.
Maybe I'll bring this one back and get it stuck in a bog, and then
We could
it'll have a hell of a lot of value.
Yeah, but you know, does it need a name? I mean, is that's also another thing that really needs discussion. Should people name inanimate objects?
That's a video for another day. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.